Hello BookTube, this is a bookshelf tour, Bookcase 12. It's local history. In my case that means New England. I will start right off here with the main reader, the Down East Experience from 1614 to the present, edited by Charles and Samuela Shane. Try to get it without the glare on it. And this is let's see, it's a paperback thing. It's David R. Godine, publisher, Boston, Non-Periel Books. And this came out in 1991. So it's a reader from Maine history. They may use this in classes or something like that. So it starts off exploration and discovery. 3 early explorers, Verrazano, Smith, Leavitt. Then they have Christopher Leavitt's A Voyage into New England. Settling Maine and the Revolution, so they have Frontier Maine, a bunch of articles after that. Then they have The Years Before the Civil War, which includes Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Nathaniel Hawthorne visits 2 friends in Maine. The Death of Silly. Two literary men visit the Maine woods. James Russell Lowell, A Moosehead Journal, and Henry David Thoreau, A Moose Hunt. They have Maine in the Civil War, the Maine Woods, Maritime Maine, Small Town Life, which includes Sarah Orne Jewett's Town Poor, Mary Ellen Chase, Lord's Days in the 90s, Edward Arlington Robinson, Maine Artists, so you have Rockwell Kent, Marsden Hartley, Vacation Land, which includes something by Sinclair Lewis, 20th Century Maine, The Middle Years, which includes Edna St. Vincent Millay, E.B. White, Rachel Carson. Then you have contemporary writers, and so that's the main reader. Then, Without a Dust Jacket, the L.L. Bean Guide to the Outdoors, and papers. Part of living up here is you wear a lot of L.L. Bean stuff, especially the boots. So this is Bill Revere with the staff of L.L. Bean, researched by Bruce Willard, and illustrated by J. Nicoletti, Random House, New York. Some idea there, sort of standard to have around here. Then Island Time, A Natural and Cultural History of the Islands of the Gulf of Maine by Philip W. Conklin. A lot of glare on that. So it's the Island Institute, Rockland, Maine, Down East Books, Camden, Maine. This came out in 1999. So one of the things we really love to do is visit the islands of Maine. And moving right along, Katahdin Trails, Lucius Merrill and the Paths to Katahdin by Richard W. Judge and Edward Zip Kellogg. This was published by the Bangor Public Library, which is a wonderful library. If you ever get to go out, for a town its size, it's an amazing place. Vibrant place. This came out in 2005, and it's a collection of some photography. Let me see if I can. And of course, Katahdin's the tallest mountain in Maine. I have climbed Katahdin, and I remember watching all the young people go flying past me while I sat trying to get my breath on a rock. Then another place we like to spend a lot of time is Acadia National Park. This book's by Alan Neary. Photographs and text both are by him, and it's Down East Books, Camden, Maine. No shortage of books about Acadia and Mount Desert Island and Bar Harbor. For those of you who enjoy the historian Samuel Eliot Morison, he also did a very good one. It's always in print. Then Maine from Here to There, a pictorial tour, published by Coastal Exposures Incorporated. Photos by Ed Elvidge. So just, I don't know, we picked this up on a trip somewhere, sometime when we were up there. Pretty typical images. And here, this is a great book, and I mean that. That's a really, really excellent book. Coastal Maine and Maritime History by Roger F. Duncan. It's the history of maritime Maine, and it is, if you like that sort of thing, it's great reading. This illustrated by Earl G. Barlow, Kathy Bray, and Consuelo E. Hanks. The Countryman Press, Woodstock, Vermont. So it's a history from European contact, and actually some before, up to pretty much the present day. If you enjoy maritime history, this is one I would recommend. And moving along, this is a famous book about Maine, a study of the lobster gangs of Maine, by James M. Atkinson, University Press of New England, Hanover and London, Library of New England. And this came out in 1988. So it's sort of like an anthropology of lobstermen. Then this, A Seal Called Andre, The Two Worlds of a Maine Harbor Seal. Harry Goodridge and Lou Dietz. I used to go down and see Andre. And the seal would travel between the aquarium down in Boston and then this Rockport, Maine, and there's always a fun story. I think they made like a little documentary about it at one time, or a movie or something. It's just the interaction of a harbor seal and a family in Maine. And this is Linda Greenlaw, All Fishermen Are Liars, True Tales from the Dry Dock Bar. You can get a look at it. Most of you remember her sea stories. You remember The Perfect Storm and all that. This book here came out 2004, and this was Hyperion, New York. Then you see these all over the country. The Images of America books. I enjoy them. This is Maine Life at the Turn of the Century through the photographs of Nettie Cummins Maxim by Diane and Jack Burns. Acadia Publishing. This is 1995. So there's sort of nostalgic views of the way life was in the past. Lots of photographs, a lot of information about the photographs, which with old photographs is not always the case. Then here is an old standard, Penobscot, Downey's Paradise by Gorham Munson, Woodcuts by Carol Thayer Berry. I've had this thing for a long time. This J.B. Lippincott and Company, Philadelphia and New York, 1959, first edition. I love the woodcuts and reading through and saying, oh, I've been there, or I've lived there, or, hearing the stories. So that's fun. And we have 2 volumes coming up about a school I graduated from and my father graduated from. And I did not know the author of the first one here, and this is A History of Bangor Theological Seminary. I'll try to do that without... the glare is really something today, isn't it? The Pilgrim Press, Boston, New York, and Chicago. And this is from 1916. Sadly, the school has shut its doors. It lasted 200 years. But all things have a beginning and end. A big part of my life and my family's life. Some of these folks, not these. Denio right here, a lot of people don't realize, was one of America's greatest book collectors. And that's saying something. Then here's a history of the school by a fellow I did know, Walter Cook. This is Bangor Theological Seminary, a sesquicentennial history. And that's Moulton Library on the cover, where I worked for a while. This was published by University of Maine Press in Orono, Maine. And it's signed by the author Walter L. Cook to my dad. It's 1971. There's Mr. Whitaker, who was president when I was a boy. And then to finish it off, the Vermont Encyclopedia, edited by John J. Duffy, Samuel B. Hand, and Ralph H. Orth. And it has little articles. University Press in New England, Hanover and London. It looks like it's from 2003. So it'll have, you know, small articles. It's very handy when I'm doing local history stuff at the library. I think the library's got a couple copies of this too. So they're not uncommon. They're pretty easy to find. So that is Bookcase 12, which is local history, shelf 3. Thank you, BookTube.